All right, so a little bit about myself. My name is R.Wauters. I'm a writer for TechCrunch, which is a blog about new technologies and startups all over the world. I'm based in Europe myself. I'm based in Belgium. So obviously I have a huge interest in the European startup scene and particularly Turkey because as Steffi said, it's a very hot market right now and we're going to try and explain why. I'm assuming that in the background we're going to have a couple of slides rotating throughout the panel, which is going to show you infographically a little overview of why Turkey is such a big market. Just to set the context, the online population in Turkey is about 35 million users. There's a very deep credit card penetration. The large majority of internet users is under 35, spending a lot of money online. So that makes for a huge internet economy and a booming startup ecosystem, which is the reason why these guys are all here. Rather than having them introduce themselves, I'm going to introduce each and every one of them and ask them a first question. So we'll go from left to right. First up, Sidar, who is the serial entrepreneur, a very well-known guy in Turkey, currently runs Peak Games, which is one of the largest social gaming companies in the world. And with a focus on emerging markets in particular. So first question for you is why this interest in emerging markets?
Because Turkey and Middle East, especially Turkey, average age in Germany is 45, Japan 44. Even if you look at big countries, it's over 30. But in Turkey, it's 25, and the population, 70% of the population is under the age of 30. And the country transformed itself very quickly. 2 years ago, we had 7 million 3G subscribers, and 1 year later, we have 25 million. And simply, we love games. And there was no even one company, serving these local users. We love games. At night, 3 a.m., you can go to suburb places. There's thousands of cafes, even people at their home, they play games. And, we want to serve them. We want to serve them, and, connect them to our games. And that's how it started last year.
Nice, and it also sets you apart from all the other social gaming companies who focus more on, the classical markets.
Exactly.
US and Europe. So next up we have Nevzat, who is the founder and CEO of online food delivery portal Yemek Sepeti. Is that pronounced correctly? I'm trying to learn Turkish. So Yemek Sepeti is one of the largest internet companies in Turkey. You're also an angel investor. You have a 10-year, a decade experience in the internet scene in Turkey. Can you tell us what has changed compared to 10 years ago?
It has changed tremendously in the last 10 years. I remember myself trying to optimize the graphics files because the users only have dial-up connection and they were using their phone lines to connect to internet. And we were giving some warnings in the website to the users to go offline after they order because if anything goes wrong, we have to get in touch with them with the phone. I think there are two inflection points in the history of Turkish internet. One came in the 2005, which started with the liberalization of Türk Telekom. And before 2005, people used the internet only at work. They didn't have connection at home, and they didn't need to, they feel. But after 2005, having a PC, personal computer, laptop or a PC, became the right thing to do for them. They understood that internet can add their life, internet can add value to their life in a lot of different ways. So they said, I was using internet at work, so why not use at home? And that, I don't know what percentage, but the internet users grew like exponentially in those 1.5 years. And I think the second inflection point came in the last year, in 2010 and 2011, when these users were before using internet for chat, for search, for porn, for other reasons. But now they transformed themselves from being a simple internet user to a buyer at internet. And I think right now that's the motive for the internet users, and that's the reason behind the enormous growth in e-commerce companies in Turkey. And I think this will continue for 2 or 2.5 years in Turkey.
Perfect, thank you. So, speaking of e-commerce, next up is Sina Afra, who's is the founder of one of the largest e-commerce companies in Turkey and beyond, because it's an example of a Turkish company that's really expanded outside of Turkey. So you're active in Ukraine, Australia, a couple of other countries. Marcafoni is the name of the company. It's a flash sales site, so a private sales club. And I think you were projecting revenues of around $1 billion in 2-3 years. So you employ over 1,000 people, so it's a huge company, flying under the radar for some reason. So my question to you is, why do you think that is? So why is such a huge company flying under the radar in terms of marketing and PR? You're not well known outside of Turkey yet.
Well, I think the radar is there is a radar outside of Turkey and inside of Turkey. So I think in Turkey it was on the radar, but Turkey is something like an awakening giant, and many developments. It's not only about Marcafoni, so there are so many great gaming, e-commerce, social media, creative stuff, mobile applications going on in Turkey. I think the rest of the world is discovering Turkey since, in the last 1 or 2 years. There are two structural reasons why, especially e-commerce in Turkey developed so much. So, Turkey has incredible high credit card penetration. I think the European average is something about 50%. Turkey has 64%. It's the second highest after the UK. Everybody is paying with credit cards in Turkey. So you don't have cash on delivery. You don't have almost no other things to pay. And secondly, the logistic infrastructures. If I compare it to Germany, if Germany is the logistic country #1, I would say at least in courier services, Turkey is #2. And these two reasons are fueling the e-commerce. And many other big companies are still coming up, which we don't know here yet.
All right. Well, thank you for sketching the landscape. Next up is Alemsah, who's the founder of 4129. You have to explain the name later on.
Okay.
So he's one of the most prominent creatives in Turkey and maybe even the world. Started a bunch of companies already: digital agency, digital media buying agency, social gaming company. What you would call a serial entrepreneur. So my question to you is, you've won awards all over the world for your creative work. Why do you still live and work in Turkey? Why do you still live and work in Turkey?
I mean, it's one of the fast-growing markets in the world right now. And when you look up the numbers, the population and the age conversion, I mean, the median age is 26. So it's a very young population, and for marketing, young population is everything, because most of the brands wants to speak to 16 to 24, and it's a huge market for that part of the population. So we have 30 million Facebook users, which is almost compared to connected users is 90% penetration. And we can easily say that every household in Turkey is connected to Facebook. So that's why lots of brands want to invest in the Facebook projects or social media projects, so to say. And there's not much done yet, and there's a huge opportunity for creating something or engaging users through different mediums like TV, mobile, and social media, and other channels. So everything just starting up. And it looks very promising because the users are very enthusiastic, so they want to try everything. An average Turkish youngster has following 40 different brands on Facebook, which is quite high. So they are curious, and that's the first motive for a marketing to have a curious consumer.
So enormous opportunities for brands.
Exactly.
All right. So you mentioned mobile. Sitting to my right is Cenk from Turkcell, who's one of the largest, or the largest carrier in Turkey, with about 35 million subscribers. Is that correct? 35. You're responsible for new technology and innovation. You're also about to set up a corporate venture fund to invest in Turkish startups, which is interesting. We'll get to that later. Can you sketch us the mobile landscape in Turkey a little? The smartphone penetration, tablets, what's going on?
As my friends have told, Turkey is growing rapidly. And just for starters, in the last 8 years, the GDP has tripled. I call Turkey a country where you have emerging country returns in a developed country stability. So the mobile, we have been heavily investing in mobile and also fiber in Turkey. And the mobile landscape is like, in Turkey there are like 65 million subscribers, which is around 87% penetration. But the infrastructure in Turkey has been, I don't know, maybe it started late because then it got the best technology. Currently, according to research from INSEAD, it's the best mobile network coverage in the world. And it's one of the few countries, I think one of the few countries where you can have 1 gigabit fiber connection to your home if you live in one of the 10 cities actually where we provide this service. So there's a huge potential for the infrastructure, which is enabling also small startups to vision somehow the infrastructure of the future and work on top of it. So their innovation is somehow triggered by this infrastructure as well.
All right. So what about mobile specifically? Are smartphones and tablets popular among the Turkish youth? Or?
Smartphone, 1 out of every 3 phones sold is a smartphone.
All right.
So it's going very popular.
Which platform is the most popular?
Of course, iPhone is very popular in Turkey, but BlackBerry is very popular in the youth. It's very cool to have a BlackBerry. But the platform that Turkcell is betting on currently is Android. Right. We are trying to, bring down the cost of Android phones. Actually, we just launched another phone today, an Android phone, where we are making mobile internet possible to almost anyone with a very subsidized, good-priced phone.
All right, terrific. Thank you very much. So we have the introductions. Let's talk a little bit about the early-stage investment scene in Turkey. The 3 of you invest in young startups. Do you also invest? So the 4 of you invest in young startups in Turkey, and you are about to set up a corporate venture fund for Turkcell. So what I would like to know is what has changed in the last 2-3 years in terms of early-stage investments?
That's what happened to me 10 years ago. I'll talk about my own experiences and I'll tell you how it changed, how it transformed. When you graduate from a nice university with a nice degree, there are 2 paths you could choose. One, you go to a multinational corporation, you earn some good money.
Can you hold the mic a little closer?
Sorry. One is you go to a multinational corporation or a credible, reputable corporation and you start earning money, then you go up, and then you have a nice house, you have a nice wife, kids, but your life, maybe you are not that satisfied. That's what I think. And your path is very well drawn. You know what you are going to get. And if you are happy with it, then you go with it. Second one, you want to become an entrepreneur. You have no idea about a lot of things, and you don't have any access to finance. And if you try and you lose, then you are not losing your money, but you are losing 2 or 3 years of your life. And it's very important because your friends who has graduated at the same time from the university with you, now they are in higher places in those corporations. So it's very difficult to choose to be an entrepreneur. It was what it was 5 years ago. But now I think there's a lot of finance options that you can get, both from VCs, private equities, angel investor. Also, we have an angel investor network. It's getting very popular. Before we had the private equity, we had the VC, and we had the entrepreneurs, but early stage capital was not there. Now there are more angel networks appearing everywhere. So I think it's the right time to become an entrepreneur than it was 10 years ago.
Perfect. So, Sina, does the traditional VCs in Turkey and the private equity firms, do they see this emergence of people as yourself, successful entrepreneurs becoming business angels? Do they see it as a threat or competition at all, or do they work together?
No, it's not a competition. It's an ecosystem, and the ecosystem is developing since in the last 2-3 years. The business angels need the corporate ventures and VCs, as well as they need the business angels to select the people, etc. And Turkey developed many new structures. The terminology of business angel is pretty new to Turkey, so it has maybe a history of 3 to 4 or 5 years. But there's another aspect of Turkey, especially in the in the startup and new ventures type. Turkey is the country of digital Darwinism. So I think there are hardly any other country where the competition level is so much. I run a flash sales business. There are 20 competitors out there, which makes absolutely no
Turkey
sense.
alone?
In Turkey alone. In group buying was, Groupon came to Turkey in April 2010. At the peak, we had 200 Groupon clones. It makes no sense, but this is a little bit the Turkish digital Darwinism. So everybody is trying, and then if it's not working, they also stop and then do something else. And this is also very specific for Turkey, which make Turkey different from other startup environments.
Sidar, do you think that's ingrained in your culture to keep trying even when you fail?
Yeah, I think it's in our culture. It's like, we have in our DNA, you can see everywhere we are really entrepreneurial. And everywhere you can see that, even in the startups, you can easily, have, when we go to other, countries like in Germany, we have friends coming from Germany and see we work minimum 6 days a week. And, our company worked like in the first 4 or 5 months, 7 days a week. And then right now we work like 6 days a week, and they are really surprised.
So in a few years, it's going to be 1 day a week.
Yeah, and I think this comes from the entrepreneurial spirit. They want to build something, they want to see, and I think it's really different than to many countries, and it comes from the DNA and the past culture.
I think that's something you need to teach other European nations, this entrepreneurial culture, which I think is lacking in a lot of European countries.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's also about being young, because we are seeing lots of young entrepreneurs who's just 18 or 19 and build a chat roulette clone or a social shopping site or a gaming company.
All right.
And they were trying, and they are not afraid of trying because they're just 16, 18, 19.
Of course. Does that mean the barrier to entry is low as well? Is it easy to start a business in Turkey?
I mean, yes, and there's lots of people who want to invest into different businesses as well right now. So people are not afraid. I mean, we have a saying: every Turkish people born creative, because we come up with those talents, because in order to survive you have to be creative. With the new generation, it becomes the definition of entrepreneur. So instead of going to university or instead of working in a job like Nevzat mentioned, they want to do something by themselves, and they are not afraid. They don't care about money or any other status, and they just want to try.
That's the way it should be.
Exactly.
Let's talk about some of the challenges, because it's not all good, obviously. As an observer, I can tell that most of the companies that are successful in Turkey tend to stay in Turkey and not focus on expanding abroad, because I think the market is big enough in their minds. For example, Yemek Sepeti, I think, is only available in Turkey. Do you have plans for international expansion?
No, actually, we are in Russia.
Oh, you are in Russia.
We are also in United Arab Emirates, and we will be into 4 other countries in the next 4 months.
Perfect.
I think Turkey is a very important hub in especially e-commerce companies to expand, to go multinational, because we didn't have the necessary funding, or funding was more difficult than our European competitors. We found it difficult to expand, but now it's different. So, and doing or achieving a business in an emerging market like Turkey, which is really tough, I think you can do this you can achieve the same level in almost all other emerging markets. But if you do this in Western Europe or United States, you will face some serious difficulties in trying to do business in emerging markets. I think this is an advantage for us. A small detail about Turkish mentality is that, yes, the credit card penetration, the logistics, the population age, they're all very true. But when you go to the basics, like when you compare Turkish mentality with some other countries, like European mentality, for example, this is what I heard from my friends also from Europe. When something new, a technological innovation, a new application any device comes up and you are from some other place, you are more reluctant to try that new thing. You say, what is this? Where does this come from? Let's see. In Turkey, if you try to be the first adapter for that device, the early adapter, to use this app, to use this software, to try this website. Because if people are talking in your social environment about that new thing, and you don't know about that, then you feel you are behind. So I think for creativity, innovation, and everything new, Turkey is a huge market.
Turkcell, Cenk from Turkcell. You talked about the fact that you run innovations for Turkcell. How hard is it for a carrier to innovate in a country like Turkey?
Actually, I believe that the corporations innovate with around their main line of business the best. And that's why we are actually looking into getting a corporate venture capital, because like all these areas of innovation, I think they are very best when there's a straight focus for that specific business. And it's really hard to do that inside the corporation. So like, but with a corporate venture capital, then you can somehow bet in all these ideas. And there, as you can see, there are a lot of ideas out there. Then you really have a chance. Another thing about Turkey, which I think Nevzat has also mentioned, is that when you look at the ex-Russian republics like Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, like Turkish is one of the most spoken languages in the world, actually. And they have a very similar culture, and also the Middle East. So being a country somewhere in between, where a Western can also feel relaxed, and they can do business there, but also a guy from Middle East also feels relaxed. So it's like a gateway to not only Turkey, but the whole world behind it. When I was talking to the VCs in the US, one of them just said, one of the biggest challenges that Turkey has is Turkey is a very big market with like more than 75 million people. Because if you just stay in the market, then you don't have a growth potential for international business. But as you can see now, successful examples have somehow tackled that, and now they're expanding in that region that we are talking about.
Right. And we're also seeing international investors increasingly focusing their attention on Turkish startups. I mean, you sold a stake of the company to MIH Allegro, which is a subsidiary of Naspers, a $23 billion company, South Africa, media company. Are there any other examples? I think eBay is also a shareholder of
the other big deal in Turkey was eBay acquiring Gidiyor for disclosed $280 million.
Do you see the evolution going on in the future? International companies looking to acquire Turkish startups?
I think Turkey just starting with that, because what Turkey was missing was a good exit, you know. And once you have the exits and crossing 100 million, 200 million benchmarks, you show that Turkey is providing natural exits in the country without any IPO, really with trade sales. With the two deals, so the Naspers deal and the eBay deal, I think the activities, even from West Coast American VCs, which we have never seen before. In 2010, almost nobody. In 2011, everybody was there, some invested. And we know that, you know, everybody is interested in continuing in this. So I think the exits are opening also a new channel in funding, which was also always the missing link in Turkey, because you had all the, you know, young people, entrepreneurship, the right mindset, the good geographic location. But now there is also the natural domestic exit type. So I think in 2012 and 2013 we will experience, I would say, maybe the biggest investments in Europe. So at least in the top 10, we will start to see more and more Turkish companies getting funding in the next time.
Perfect. We'll keep watching the scene. We'll talk a little bit more about social media. You mentioned 35 million Facebook users in
30 million.
30 million.
30 million, yes. 30, yes.
All right. So can you sketch us a little how social media is used by Turkish?
I mean, it's like, for example, video consumption. An average Turkish user spending watching like 250 video per month. I think it's the largest number in the world, and Facebook is the number one in terms of viewing video and spending content and spending time. And I think lots of people playing social games. Huge ratio, a percentage of online users are playing games, and it is the first thing that they do in the morning. So they check their Facebook, they check their Twitter, and for example, Twitter. I mean, 2 years ago it was like 100,000 users. Now it's 6 million, 6.5 million Twitter users in Turkey, and we are seeing different mediums, converging into each other. So, for example, when there's a TV show, the same TV show becomes a trending topic in Turkey as well, which is similar to the rest of the world. So, I mean, in terms of social media, I can easily say that we are not behind the rest of the world. We are at the same level. In some areas like banking and mobile, I think we are ahead of most of the countries. So that's why in social media, people like to engage with the brands. They like to play games. They are open to new ideas because it's totally new for them. Everything is totally new for them, and they are not afraid to talk with the brands. So if a brand do a campaign on a Facebook, asking some stuff or creating a game, people just try. They're not afraid, or they are not get bored at this point. So it's a very fresh market, and the tools are just building. So there's a huge potential for companies like Body Media in Turkey as well, because those platforms are not developed yet. So there's a huge potential for that kind of business as well.
Makes sense. So you mentioned video viewing. When I was in Istanbul a couple of months ago, that was one of the things that most fascinated me about how much video consumption, how much engagement there is in the. Why do you think that is? Well, what's the difference with other European countries?
I mean, I think it's part of the TV culture. So, I mean, average Turkish people watch lots of TVs, especially reality shows and these soap operas. And with the increase in the internet users, for example, household women start watching TV online because they couldn't catch up with the TV because they have something to do. So later on, they use YouTube and other channels to watch that videos. So basically, internet becomes like a second TV for them.
I have a funny story about that.
We love funny stories.
Like 4 or 5 years ago, Turkcell has the rights for the Premier Soccer League. So we just launched mobile TV, and we have looked at the European models, like the US models, and the amount of TV, for example, soccer games watched on the mobile was around 8 to 12 minutes. So we did all the balancing according to that. All the capacity balancing, everything. When we launched it, it was so popular. People watched the whole football game on the mobile. So, we were out of capacity. We had to reinvest and all that stuff. So, whenever there's something new, it's so easy to penetrate that.
Right. So before the panel, we were also talking about mobile banking, mobile financial services that you deliver, and you talked about some innovation that you've done there. Can you share a little more?
This past week, we launched the BlackBerry NFC mobile wallet worldwide with Turkcell, and we are actually, we just issued a prepaid card which is linked to your mobile phone, so you can transfer money to people. And because there are even though there are so many credit cards, there are 20 million people who don't have a credit card. So we are penetrating that. These don't have a credit card, but they have a phone. So they come to our stores. So we are just launching this. We just launched last year this prepaid card, and it just turned out to be a huge success. Now inside that mobile wallet, we will enable people to get a default prepaid card, so that they can use for their online transactions and also on the mobile. So they don't need to punch in their credit card, they will just punch in their phone number. So that will ease and also somehow boost the e-commerce, I believe.
So how important is mobile for your businesses? For example, do you have mobile games as well?
Yes, we have one game ready right now and another 2 games under development. I think mobile is the future, and especially in emerging markets like Turkey, I think mobile devices will be the main devices people will use. Right now we see maybe internet is really huge in Turkey, but looking back after 5 years, we'll see everybody has like Android or iPhone devices at their hands, and they are using internet, e-commerce, and gaming. That's what I believe. So we are betting big on mobile. And because I believe, we are discussing why internet and e-commerce and gaming is big in Turkey. I believe, especially emerging markets like Turkey, internet and gaming, e-commerce, it became another entertainment way for people like in Turkey, because we don't have anything. In Germany, you have you go out and you have many, even in a small city like Munich, you have many tennis courts, you have many, skating places and many sports gym houses. You don't have anything, especially you go to suburban areas, you don't have anything. But with amazing infrastructure after the, telecom evolution, internet is really cheap, and with only $10 per month, you have a new world at your home, and everybody is in this new world. So they use this for their life. So this became a new life for them. Right. So it will be really big, including mobile.
All right. So I'm getting the sign that we have to stop. Time flies if you're having fascinating conversations. So thank you very much for explaining why Turkey is such a hot market. Thank you very much.